Man, it's nice seeing that video, because Gates gets inducted right after our last show. Rivers is now a Charger forever. We got an echo on your end, Craig. I don't know if you got the video, but it's always awesome to see that video.
Sure.
But anyway, Chargers win 27-13 against Craig's family's team, the New Orleans Saints. They got the win. They saw three different quarterbacks from the Saints. Chargers also played three as well. But we got a lot to talk about. So I guess since we started with quarterback, Craig, let's talk about the Chargers quarterback. We saw Heineke today for a little bit, saw Trey Lance for the majority of it, and then we got a little taste of DJ at the end there too.
Yeah, it's nice. They gave DJ some cleanup duty and let the dude come in and fire away. So I felt bad for him.
Did he have kneel down snaps last week too?
Yeah, I think so. I felt kind of bad for him. Like, nah, man, let him go in there and let it rip, because they didn't have a lot of big plays anyway. But as far as Taylor Heineke goes, he looks rusty. Where did he go? Overall, was it 1 for 5? Didn't get his first completion for a minute. And I'm being completely honest with you. Trey Lance seems like a better fit for this offense at this point, based on kind of what they want to do, the fact that he's more mobile. And right now, the ball placement still isn't perfect, but it looks a lot better than Heineke's at the moment. And all things considered, like, Heineke missed some of camp, and maybe he's kind of still rounding in the form. But just for what this offense wants from their quarterback, Lance offers more of that than Heineke does, not just from an athletic standpoint, but also he's got a stronger arm. And maybe we're getting a little bit of a little insight here into how they plan on utilizing Herbert, but let's not go down that road. What Lance does really well, even though the numbers are super impressive from today, he's only 7 of 14 for under 60 yards, is that he keeps plays alive and he keeps drives going. So when the play doesn't develop, let's say, you get pressure on the pocket, it collapses, he's able to escape and keep the offense on schedule. Even if, like, early on, a lot of his throws weren't necessarily on point, but he was still able to maintain drives. Taylor Heineke doesn't necessarily show the ability to do that because he's just not the athlete that Lance is. So he doesn't offer that upside that Lance does. So right now, in what is a 2-horse race for the backup quarterback job, I feel like at this point, Lance might actually be ahead, and I don't think that should be a surprise for anyone.
No. So we saw Heineke early on go to Tyler Conklin, and the first one seemed a little bit behind him, but kind of catchable. The other one was a little high off his fingertips. Both just could not connect. And, we're talking about Tyler Conklin. We're not talking about UDFA or anybody, that he couldn't get receptions from. But we also saw that there was a throw out in the flat to Kamani Vidal where he kind of just threw off his back foot, planted wrong, stepped away, and then just kind of went over his head, which felt like, that was just kind of a easy completion. There wasn't a lot of people near Vidal. And while there was some semblance of pressure, it wasn't like there was a guy, bearing down on him or anything. When he couldn't complete that pass, it felt like it was going to be a pretty rough day for Heineke. Yeah, it was, he had one completion. It was 8 yards. Granted, the offensive line didn't give him a lot of time to operate today. But he just was not comfortable much at all. And Trey Lance ended up getting that same offensive line, and he ended up being able to deal. It happened a lot later in his reps, but Heineke definitely had a pretty rough day, and it feels like he has fallen to maybe the 2B right now in the competition, with Trey Lance being 2A at quarterback 2A. I still feel like it's pretty close. Like, they wanted to give Heineke some snaps just to kind of, get him going and see how he does. And I think in game 3, we're probably going to see a lot more of Heineke and a lot more of Lance, maybe like a half split maybe. But Trey Lance today obviously was the better quarterback. He was the best quarterback, to be honest, of any player today on both sides of the teams, both sides of the sideline, excuse me. But Trey Lance early on made some really tough decisions early. He bobbled a snap that almost caused a fumble. But after that kind of face mask penalty where they were able to go 15 yards, it felt like everything clicked and he was able to move the ball a little bit more. He had 2 impressive runs after that penalty where he was pressured and he made that quick decision to use his legs. And then right after that, he did the same thing to rush for the touchdown. But the thing that I liked about it is I never care for design runs for quarterbacks in the preseason. I don't feel like you're giving your quarterback enough of a leash there. Like, he should be able to operate in the pocket. You're not gonna be able to run as much as you do in the preseason. And it's just kind of easy yards when you're going against, third, fourth stringers. So I never liked it. And also it hits a soft spot for me because that kept Easton Stick on this roster too freaking long. He'd rush in for touchdowns. They'd win a game by 2 points because he rushed for like 58 yards and it was like 2 for 53 for 6 yards. But then they kept him because, he led a comeback. I hated that. So, but on those runs from Lance, they were not design runs. He was in the pocket. He had to improvise because there was pressure, and then he made the right choice and then was able to rush for first downs. It felt like the touchdown was kind of a read option where he saw there was a hole and kind of ran for it. But those first 2 runs that he had for first downs, I felt like he made the right decision. And then eventually, he was able to make some throws later on. But I really appreciated Trey Lance. I felt like the throw of the day was from DJ down the sideline, Campbell. But, I mean, they had 100 yards total of passing today. Nobody was very good through the air. We didn't see a lot from a lot of wide receivers. There were a couple that we'll get to. But, Trey Lance, it feels like he's kind of hopped Heineke. And, again, it feels like Trey Lance right now is QB2A, and then you got Heineke as QB2B. Feels like those 3 are going to make the roster anyway. But who's going to come in when Herbert gets out is going to be the question now because, you imagine DJ is going to be a practice squad guy. But we're going to see what happens in game 3 because it's now a pretty, heated competition for QB2.
Yeah, when you go back and look at just the box score, if you don't look at the game, nothing that you see there is impressive from Lance. But again, the thing that sets him apart is that when you're talking Heineke's game, everything almost has to be set up perfectly. Like, he's not about the impromptu action. He can make a little bit of that happen, but Lance thrives because he can create for himself. When the play breaks down, it's not necessarily over. And you saw that on multiple occasions today, like you mentioned. When we're talking about that 14 play, what was it, 85-yard TD drive? If you go back and look at that play for play, he wasn't dicing the Saints up with his arm. There were some decent throws there, but he was able to maneuver specifically late in that drive and keep it going. And I want to say that, and I was literally driving, so guys, don't do this because it's not safe. I wouldn't recommend it. But I saw the drive kind of out of my peripheral while I was driving, and it looked like it might have been a QB draw on that play. But like you mentioned, it also kind of sort of seems like I'd have to go back and look at how it was set up in the blocking. It could have just been him making a decision to pull it down and run for it because he saw a lane. So I have to go back in and watch it. But I would not be surprised to see more called QB runs with him just because he offers that. And we're still talking about a kid who doesn't have that much experience playing the position. Not to say he hasn't been a quarterback his entire life, but literally he barely has any game reps. And that's going all the way back to college at North Dakota State. So while he's learning the quarterback position and the nuances of it and getting himself together as a passer, Greg Roman's still doing a fantastic job at utilizing what he does well. So in games like this, when you need a play here or there, in the margins to keep drives going and get points on the board, or at least get you in scoring range to where you can walk away with maybe 3 points, better than nothing at all, then Trey Lance can do that for you. Meanwhile, you watch Taylor Heineke, and I'll give him a pass. He had some really crappy field position a couple times. And again, that doesn't necessarily work in his favor because when you have an offensive line that isn't like your ones up there protecting you, you're going to deal with pressure and things like that. And if you're not a guy that can create for yourself, then you're probably going to find yourself in situations where you're facing a bunch of 3-and-outs. Or, you're going to be backed up and you have to make a guy miss here or there and still try to look down the field to get the ball to open wide receivers. And it just may not work out for you because that's not your skill set. So, yeah, as of right now, and I don't think anyone could have guessed this because just like everyone else, when we saw that they made that move to get Trey Lance, we were all like, what the hell? Because you just assumed that Taylor Heineke was going to be the guy. Yeah. But, we might have some QB whisperers here in Shane Day and Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh just seems to do this with quarterbacks in general. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised.
No, we should not. But, yeah, he's done it again, it feels like. I mean, we're talking about preseason, but, yeah, man. Trey Lance, good, solid day for him today. Leading passer, leading rusher. So doing it across the board. We were talking about wide receivers a little bit because there wasn't much. This will probably be pretty quick, but I mean, we saw Trey Harris get 1 target in the end zone. Was kind of knocked down by a DB. We saw KLS get a target today, which was a drop on 3rd down, which forced a punt. But other than that, it was like We saw Gaston get some targets. He felt like a nice safety valve early in Lance's reps with 2 catches before halftime. Campbell, obviously a big one, and then Brendan Rice. But outside of those, it just felt like it was that was really it for the wide receivers.
Yeah, the passing game in general was subpar. But when you're talking about the receivers and how they produced, so I saw the KLS rep. There was another one that I think I was on the move while it was happening, so I'm literally watching it on my phone. It looks like it was a PBU as opposed to just a drop. I don't know. Have to go back and look, or if you saw it live, Garrett, you can let me know. Correct me on, if don't quote me on it, but it looked like it might have been a PBU. And then you also
are you talking about that play before on that third?
So he had two targets, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I'm talking about the first one was in the middle of the field, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that might have been a PBU or a drop. Someone correct me. Either way.
Yeah.
Trey Harris had 1 target in the end zone, and I'm almost certain that was pass interference. So not a whole lot from the 2 guys we expected to see more from today, but it seems like there's a cautious approach with them, which is kind of weird. But again, I think Harbaugh's a little gun shy with some of these guys just based on the injuries that have been taking place in the last week or so. So looks like they just wanted to get them a couple of series and then get them off of the field. I can kind of sort of understand that, even though we want them to get some more runs, specifically these young wide receivers, because we want them to step up and produce this year. But other than that, yeah, like you mentioned, Delevon Campbell with the huge 49-yard grab, and he had a couple of other nice contact or catching through contact receptions. There were a ton of slant routes today where guys were having to catch contested balls in very narrow windows. They weren't really pushing the ball down the field a ton. Brendan Rice had a really difficult time kind of tracking a deep shot from Trey Lance. That was a hard ball to adjust to because it kind of drifted off to the right. He was looking over his shoulder and then literally almost bent his body completely backwards. Had he caught that ball, I would have been very, very impressed. But to be completely honest with you,
there was contact.
There was contact. He had to slow up for the ball. It wasn't the best thrown ball. Had a little too much air under it.
Yeah.
But he had a 1 grab for like 12 yards. So outside of that, Ronnie Gaston, like you mentioned, a couple of nice grabs on was it the same drive? I don't quite remember.
Yeah,
but yeah, so made some really nice snags, and you're seeing him just like last week, same as this week. You'll see him pop up. You almost kind of forget about him a little bit, but they made him an emphasis on that drive. I think he'll be a nice security blanket as well. And really nothing else to talk about there in the passing game, which this wasn't an uber exciting game if you want to talk about points being scored specifically on the offensive side of the ball. But there's work to be done for sure. The timing has to get situated. The protection wasn't ideal. And again, we're not looking for Trey Lance to really carve defenses up because that's not sort of his thing at this point. I did expect Heineke to perform a little bit better though.
Yeah.
But as far as the receivers are concerned, there's not a ton of glean from today's performance, but I do want to give Campbell his props for catching that bomb and also a couple of other nice rough snags through contact as well. So showed himself very well today.
Yeah. Really nice catch on the 2-point conversion too, which was nice placement by Trey Lance, by the way. It was a low, hit him right in the stomach, right in the tummy for that easy 2-point conversion. It was a nicely thrown ball, good placement, good timing too, because as soon as he cut in, he hit him right in stride. It was perfect. So Brendan Rice obviously couldn't connect on the deep ball. Felt like there was a lot of contact there without no call. And then nice catch and run the 4th, but there was nothing. I felt like there was one catch from KLS on the 3rd down, hit him in the hands, and then he tried to catch it again, like double catch it, and then
it was a double. Okay.
Yeah, and then the defender came and knocked it away. So it hit him in the hands the first time. It just felt like
it's a drop.
It felt like something he should have caught. Again, Gaston did a nice job as a little safety valve. Kind of catch on the run. A lot of crossers, a lot of slants today. But other than that, there was just no. And there's not a lot of bodies out there anyway. So, those 2 were fine. And then outside of that, I guess we got to talk about the running backs. They had some catches too. But why don't we start with Rocket Sanders because he felt like the highlight today a little bit.
Yeah, Rocket. You can tell that, and we already know this because they signed him to a higher than normal contract for an undrafted rookie free agent. This was one of the Jim Harbaugh moves for sure, because just the brand of football that he plays. He's not as rugged a back for his size as you think. He is kind of more of, as opposed to a downhill runner, he's a guy that, as you saw it today, he likes to get to the edges and beat guys with his speed. And for someone who's 6'1", 200 and Rockets 230, so bigger than Hampton, if I'm not mistaken, or around the same size. He's not afraid of contact. He'll definitely get low and kind of burrow his way through the interior of the offensive line, but he will surprise you because he's just as fast. If we're talking just pure 40 time, as Amari and Hampton is. I wouldn't necessarily say he's explosive in short areas, but long speed wise is about the same. And so you saw him kind of get to the edge to get a touchdown there late in the game. You saw him running between the tackles a little bit, but I would like to see him be more of an in between the tackles guy and utilize that size. But again, if you can make it work in space like that as a bigger back, then absolutely do your thing. So he was the lead guy today as far as what yardage was concerned from the running backs, if I'm not mistaken. But no, well, yeah, I'm looking at Trey Lance, so that doesn't count. But yeah, so 10 carries, 42 yards. He had a TD on the ground, and I saw some nice runs. But I also saw some instances where he was in the line of scrimmage, and you didn't see that same leg drive that you see from a guy like Kamani Vidal or for that matter, Haskins. Yeah. So these are guys that run a little bit more stout in between the tackles. And for someone of that size, that stature, you would expect more. But I like what I saw. And I think this is a guy that Harbaugh definitely wants to try to keep around. If he were to come out next week and have a similar performance today, I don't think you're going to be able to get him on your practice squad. That doesn't feel like something that's a reality for me. And it's a good problem to have. When you have this many backs that are able to produce and you kind of have your pick of the litter, it's not something that Chargers have been able to say in years past, but there are going to be some tough decisions to make when it comes to the back end of the roster. And if Rocket Sanders goes out next week and he shows out again, then I know that we are already looking at the roster. I think we talked about it a little bit last week, and part of that was because he wasn't playing due to injury. But there's some questions to ask here in the next 2 or so weeks as to whether or not he's someone that may be able to stick around. When you're talking Kamani Vidal, he had a couple of nice runs, not nearly the performance he had last week. But again, I want to be honest here. When we're talking about the interior of the offensive line, there was not a whole lot of surge in the running game today at all, which is why you saw so many runs have to bounce outside, because there was just a mess on the interior. Guys weren't getting off of the ball. They were getting knocked back, literally knocked into each other. You saw running backs pinballing, trying to get through gaps and then having to bounce the ball outside. So I was actually really surprised that they were able to find the success that they did on some of these runs, but not a whole lot from Vidal. Naeem Miller-Hines, not a ton to write home about either. Then there's the special teams gaffes. Oof. And for a guy who's been out of football for 2 years, last week looked pretty good. This week, super questionable. And he was already, on the outskirts of the roster, on the outside looking in for potential to make it. Kind of felt like he was more of a body going into camp. Hopefully he didn't sign his own death note today as far as making the roster, but overall just not very good optics. Specifically on special teams. But as a running back today, just not a ton going on. He had a really nice run. I can't remember where it was. He broke a guy off in the open field, just like left the jockstrap on the field in between the numbers. So that was his highlight for the day for the most part. And as far as anyone else, Hassan Haskins, just rough and rugged running that we see whenever he gets in. Another one of those Michigan guys that Harbaugh loves as well. So overall, as a collective, I think they performed just fine. And like I said before, there are going to be some tough decisions to make here come going into the season, and who's going to make that 53-man roster.
Yeah, Miller-Hines, I keep trying to call him Hines. Miller-Hines started off the game with a pretty nice opening kickoff return. And then to muff 2 punts and lose one, luckily recover the other. I mean, they ended up pulling him, but that is not going to help his cause. And you kind of expect this from a guy who, is coming back from a scary injury and 2 years of not playing any football. But man, to do that twice, and granted, Darius Davis is going to be the returner, so it's not dire. But also, if he was hoping to make the roster, he did pretty well last week. You'd want to make those reps count just in case Darius Davis goes down with an injury. But that open field move from him was so nice. Kamani Vidal had a really nice first down run. Again, had to bounce it outside, but showed some nice wiggle. We saw Haskins have a nice run in the fourth quarter for first down. Also had a really nice 12-yard scamper towards the end of the game. But Rocket Sanders, when he got in, had 3 straight touches. It was run, and then he had a third down catch for I think 12 yards or something, 11, 12 yards for the first down. And then the next couple runs, it felt like one went for negative yards. Then he was just kind of like grinding out like 2-yard runs, a first-yard run. Then he went in on that 2-point conversion and then got stuffed at the goal line. He got some more carries later in the game. It just didn't feel like he got a lot going on. And then he popped that one for the touchdown. And I am hopeful that he will make it to the practice squad, and I think he deserves a practice squad spot. But I'm not quite there where it's like, if he does do good next week, that he's a guy that you like have to kind of hide under 53 or try to like make him part of the second wave of cuts so teams can't see. I don't see that quite yet, but because there was like so many runs that didn't feel like, and again, the offensive line was an issue today. We'll get into the interior of the offensive line. They were bad, but he didn't have a ton to say, man, this guy's electric and somebody's definitely going to pick him up. Great run today. Nice job scraping the line of scrimmage and bouncing outside for that touchdown. And the catch was nice too. But Rocket was impressive. He's definitely the best running back today. He put the most production down, the most impressive runs today. But I'm still hopeful that he hasn't quite hit the national spotlight that everybody's kind of taking notes on. I'm hoping he can make it through cuts and make it to the practice squad.
Yeah, he just kind of fits that mold of the style of running back that Harbaugh likes, and you can tell by the way they went after him. Because, to be completely honest with you, it was a shock that he wasn't drafted, in my opinion. For someone who performed so well in the SEC, I think he's like first team and then like third team SEC last year. He did have an injury situation there, which hurt his draft stock, but overall, just somebody who really shouldn't have been available, but it was also a very deep running back draft. So, them's the breaks sometimes. But that catch on that wheel route was actually very, very nice. The fact that he was able to adjust to it, and then kudos also to Trey Lance for placing the ball where it had to be, because it was very well covered. And he was able to pull that play off and make the reception and keep that drive going. So, I just think it's less about Rocket showing out and other teams feeling like they just have to have him, and more so that he just feels like a Harbaugh guy, and Jim's going to try to find a way to keep him around.
Yeah. I'm hoping he can do something on special teams, because it feels like he's a better Haskins. Like he can just show out and be a better Hassan Haskins in that role. But Harbaugh loves Haskins, so we'll see how that goes. But it's definitely that competition's heating up a little bit with Miller Hines going down, at least the stock down, as the chat was saying. And then Vidal and Haskins doing okay, and then Sanders obviously being the best of the bunch today. So let's talk about the interior offensive line, because we saw a lot of issues, because it felt we'll get to the defense in a little bit, but it felt like the interior offensive line was not good today, but the interior defensive line was really good today. And we'll get to that. But Carson Barnhart today had his issues, gave up a couple pressures that I saw. One of them was when Heineke got his arm hit, and then he also went down late in that game, got rolled up on. It seemed like the reports are that he was joking on the sideline. I don't remember which reporter said that, but seems like he's okay, but he had some issues. And then Andre James gave up that big sack that was almost a safety, one of which we were hoping would have a pretty good day today and push Zion a little bit and Bozeman a little bit. But man, after that showing, not so much. Zion actually not bad today.
No. And even last week, after being able to go back and watch the game overall, aside from those 2 botch snaps on consecutive downs, Zion played pretty well. So that was super encouraging. Happy to see that. Let me tell you, one of the things that hurt Andre James on that play is the fact that the running game wasn't going, and they tried to run play action anyway, and the defensive tackle was not buying it. And James, I would say, is a pretty decent pass protector. We saw him have success in a more power-based scheme with the Raiders before they decided to ask him to do what he doesn't well in more of a zone scheme. So yeah, it was definitely a rough showing for him, a couple of rough downs, but just overall the interior of the offensive line was just blah today. And again, if you're going to have those type of snafus on your offensive line, specifically on the interior, you have to have a more mobile quarterback, because if you don't, you're going to see a lot of what Taylor Heineke saw today, a lot of pressure in your face. And sometimes you're going to have to get out the ball a little bit sooner than you want to. And also, if you don't have the type of arm to fit it in windows, or like the proper timing to kind of beat those pressures or those unexpected pressures, then you're probably going to put the ball in harm's way a bunch. So, yeah, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on the interior offensive line, because literally we could do this every week. For the most part, it's been a thing now. We're talking regular season play too, but 2025 is what we're concerned with.
Yeah.
The younger guys aren't looking all that great. Who's the center? Is it Kaltenberger?
Something like that, yeah.
Josh Kaltenberger. I still like what I see from him. I think they might have something with him long term, as someone that they can continue to develop. He also kind of fits that size profile that they like. They want bigger offensive linemen. He's definitely taller. I know he's like 6'6". As far as like his overall weight, I don't know if he
was the dude who came in after Andre James, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
He did pretty good today. Yeah, overall, that's someone that I think that has the ability to continue to grow. I'm curious to see what the plan would be moving forward. Thinking too far ahead, but like next year and beyond, because there are actually some really good centers in next year's draft class, but different conversation for a different day.
We're not there yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, but as far as Zion is concerned, fine from what I saw early on, but that's another one of those things where you have to go back and look at all 22, because the broadcast does not give you a good idea of just like how they held up against protection, how they sat down against the pressure, how they were able to keep the quarterback clean to the best of their ability. So I'll wait for that to come out to give my overall final judgment on the interior offensive line. But some of that stuff was just nasty, and I don't need to see again. I could just tell based on the player and the rep. But yeah, let's not talk about offensive line anymore, at least not the
interior. By the way, did you see just offensive line, and this isn't about play or anything, did you see Salyer grew his hair out? No. I saw his hair under his helmet because he played left tackle today, and he's 68.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I had Sam Tevy flashbacks, because he had, he was 69 and he had the hair outside the helmet, and I was like, "What is this?" But anyway.
PTSD.
Yeah, a little bit. But
okay. I'm actually curious to go back and see Sawyer's reps at left tackle. I didn't get, again, like I said early on, I was on the move, so I was watching on my phone while moving around, so I didn't really get to see it in depth. So can't wait to go back and watch that, because he did a decent job when he was asked to do that his rookie season. It's not necessarily a move that I would want to make going forward if it had to happen. Either tackle, I still think his best position is on the inside, but I'm glad that he lost the weight, and he seems to be performing really well in camp from all reports.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just a player that I've always liked, and so I hope the best for him is someone that I hope sticks and can find himself to be, if they need him, a regular part of the offensive line, specifically on the interior at one of the guard spots. Well, the left guard spot, if we need him there, not necessarily the right, but if Becton were to go down, and it's a whole nother can of worms. I'm not trying to open up, but Sawyer, I think, can do his thing on the interior, but again, curious to see how he performed at left tackle.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably talk about the Slater injury a little bit later, but it's going to be kind of all hands on deck now with that anyway. So they got to cross train everybody at this point, especially since games haven't started yet. They got some time, at least a little bit. All right, so let's talk about the interior offensive line. Not too great. Interior defensive line, very, very good today.
Mm-hmm. You got it, man. I would say they've done a really good job at collecting players that fit exactly the type of ball they want to play on the interior defensive line. And the goal here is to be bigger, right? On both the offensive and defensive line. But I will say that pretty early on, one of the people that I'm excited about that I was on the fence about initially was Deshaun Hand. But Deshaun Hand looks like he has the opportunity to come in and have a potential Puna 4 type impact on the defensive line. He's very athletic. He's pretty stout. He gets a little bit more penetration than what I initially thought he would. He had a pretty decent season. I can't remember if it was with the Lions or where he went after that, but I remember that he had a solid season on the interior as a force. when we're talking about getting after the quarterback with at least getting pressure on him. But I think there's an opportunity for him to be one of those names that steps up and takes a leap forward on the defensive line and becomes one of those guys, like, again, if you can stay healthy, that makes a very, very real difference. And we've been asking, hey, where are the Chargers going to get that interior pressure from? Because they still don't have a guy that does that with any regularity. And I wouldn't be shocked if Hand turns into it. I know we all like Tier Tart. I was a big fan of that pickup as well. I think that connection between Tart playing on side of Hand. We've heard good things about Tito. I think he was dealing with some injuries also. We saw him flash a little bit last week, but just in general, Jamari Caldwell got a sack on today, was more of an effort sack, but also you still got to see that unnatural quickness from a guy that's like 340 plus pounds. You saw him get off of a block, disengaged, and just accelerated towards the quarterback. It was kind of sort of a coverage sack, if I'm not mistaken, but again, just for him to be able to disengage, get downhill, wrap the quarterback up, and finish the play was really exciting, because we know he didn't have any sacks last year at Oregon, but at Houston, he was basically moved up and down the line, sometimes even as a 5-tech and pass rusher. And we always go back to that play where he gets the spin move off on the tackle and gets after the quarterback. Still can't believe it. Like, really nimble for a guy his size. So that was very, very encouraging. But overall, the defensive line showed up again against the run. They were able to make the quarterback move off of their spots, but all of the quarterbacks that were in were pretty much, they weren't able to really sit in the pocket, survey, and work the ball downfield. And pretty consistently, the defense was making it happen on the interior. So very, very happy to see that, because we knew that was a huge question mark going into this season as well.
Yeah, Hand got a lot of push on that first drive. He forced Rattler out of the pocket on a bull rush, and then he got a hit on Rattler as he's releasing the ball and forced an incompletion, went out on the sideline. But Jamari Caldwell was awesome today. He was really disruptive, pushed the pocket a lot. Harbaugh had talked about, like, man, he can absorb double teams and still get to the quarterback. And we saw a little bit of that today, where he's getting double teamed and still walking two guys back at least into the vicinity of the quarterback. He didn't get a lot of pressures in that regard, but for a guy to be able to absorb double teams and still get pushed at the quarterback is a pretty impressive trait for a guy on the interior. And it just felt like that, the sack in the third quarter, it felt like Shuck held the ball too long, and it probably was a cover sack, but it was just that motor that he had in Oregon and at Houston, where he was just relentless. And so he kept fighting and then finished and got the sack. The concern now is that injury. He was holding his arm or his elbow or whatever that was in the next play. And you hope he's okay, because man, if Jamari Caldwell is already starting to put it together and the coach is already impressed with him, losing a guy like Poona Ford, you could at least accept that a little bit better if they've got something in some of these guys, because they've got Caldwell, there's Aboigbe and Tito, a lot of these unknown commodities. And if one of them hit, I mean, man, it just feels like kind of those 49er days when, not Harbaugh, but when Shanahan had Saleh, and they would just rotate D linemen all the time, and whoever they brought in there was always effective. It just feels like Harbaugh might have some of that juice too. He had the same thing when he was a 49ers coach too, but I hated losing Poona Ford. I wanted Poona Ford back in the worst way. It felt like he was the, top free agent they had to bring back. And Jamari Caldwell has been really impressive. Last week on the rewatch, he was really good. Today, he was even better.
Funny thing about Caldwell is last week, and I can't wait to go back and rewatch his snaps from today. They played him. You think of Caldwell more of a nose, but he played a lot of 1 and 3 tech last week.
Yeah.
So they were asking him to get after the quarterback a little bit on passing downs as well. So yeah, he's got the juice to do it. He has the body type that fits really well as someone who just mucks things up on the interior, specifically against the run, because he can't take on double teams. And he has that ability to sit down against a double team where he kind of anchors, puts one knee into the ground. It looks weird when it happens, but that's actually a taught technique. And essentially guys can't move him. If you got two guys on one and they're not making any hay, then that means you've got a free possible linebacker or maybe a looper or something on a stunt that can get inside and maybe make a play against the run or get after the quarterback. So yeah, Jamari Caldwell fans, we've been since kind of, the draft, when we had an opportunity to go back and watch him after the selection. I know it was a little weird initially, but then when we got to look at the tape and we're like, okay, yeah, I understand why that makes sense. So yeah, hopefully he's okay. But there was a little bit of a theme today with guys who performed really well and then got nicked up somehow. So
yeah,
hopefully everybody's okay, but we'll see going into next week.
Yeah, and we're talking about 2 preseason games, but if Jamari Caldwell works out, and why we got so excited about it is, every team's overlooking a guy who you can clearly see on tape has some plus traits in his play strength and has plus traits in athleticism. And if you can put that on the interior of a defensive line, you can say, if he puts it together and we coach him up, he can be a dominant force on the interior, where other guys are going, other GMs and scouting departments are going, well, there's no production there. He was an edge. Now he's an interior guy. I mean, right now it looks like they might have something, and kudos to that team and that, that scouting department to be bet on the traits at that spot, which you absolutely love, because there are some, like, they'll just get giant guys who can't move and are slow. It happens every single year, and I hate them. These nose who are, like 400 pounds and are getting stops because running backs are running into them, but they're not showing anything on tape. Whereas the Chargers and Ortiz and that group are looking ahead and going, hey, look, there's not a lot of production there, but the traits are all there. And looks like he's starting to put it together.
Well, it goes to show you how much they trust their development and the coaching staff.
Right. Yeah.
So when you're paying these guys this kind of money, and Harbaugh's always said, like, what was the joke? He's like Moses, he's going to die leaning on his staff. So yeah, they absolutely know what they're doing in that building. So they see traits, they see how guys can be utilized, they see how they fit within their defensive scheme or on the offensive side of the ball as well. And yeah, they're willing to take chances on them. Even a guy like Justin Aboigbe, who they knew was going to be a bit of a project.
Yeah,
his game translates well to what they want to do on the interior. So they're willing to take a year or two to help him get in the flow of things, where other people may be looking for more of a ready-made prospect in those earlier draft picks. Jim Harbaugh and his staff, Joe Ortiz, look at some of these guys that may be a couple of years away from being really, really good, but there's enough to invest in them for a year or two and allow them to come along. And then before you know it, what looked like it may have been a reach ends up being an impact player on your team.
Yep. So you were alluding to it a little bit earlier about, showing out and then an injury. We got to talk about Eric Rodgers, who was definitely the player of the game today.
So sucks, man, because he literally got hurt on the last kickoff of the game, and hopefully it's not anything serious. He needed help to get off of the field. He was able to put some pressure on his leg, but he got bent up really awkwardly, and looked like he may have gotten blocked in the back while he was bending backwards.
Insult to injury, dude. They didn't call it.
Man, there were a bunch of weird calls. I've never seen a game where the refs made a call, discussed it, and then came back and
during a timeout.
That happened. Okay, so specialty. This is completely unrelated. Well, for this topic, but we're not talking about Rodgers here. How do you call a holding penalty, say that it wasn't a holding penalty, go to commercial break, and come back and be like, nah, we changed our mind again after we talked about it? It was holding. Shut up, man.
Yeah.
You're doing too much already. It's only the preseason. And I get it. Maybe it's the preseason for everybody, refs included, but I didn't know that was a thing. Like, how do you discuss a holding call to that extent? I'm not accustomed to that. Like, but whatever. As far as Rodgers is concerned,
without a review or anything, like I've never seen that before. Ever.
Every year they come up with something new. I'm just surprised it didn't happen in a Chiefs game. They decided they were going to wait. Yeah. Keep an eye out for it, though. They're just laying the foundation for it to pop up somewhere else. Be super convenient. But Rodgers in general, I'm not going to front. I knew he was on the roster, but I never really paid attention to him at all. I like, from a size perspective, I think he's like 6'1", 6'2", so bigger corner. They want to have at least one of those guys to defend on the boundary. But dude was getting busy today, man. When we're talking about multiple really good PBUs, 2 picks. The one that was the pick 6. I mean, I get it. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery? Is that the saying?
Yep.
So you've got the pick that he got today, which looks exactly like Nico Reed's pick from last week, which looks exactly like Tarheeb Still's pick from the Atlanta game last year. Literally not making this up. They all are identical. You see the cornerback sit on an out route and then drive downhill, pick the ball up. What was really impressive is the fact they had to leave his feet to get the ball, gets up, and then still is able to complete it for the pick six. But they're finding these guys, these secondary players, specifically corners, that they're letting play zone defense, who are really good at seeing the ball and then getting after it as long as they can keep the ball in front of them. Tarheeb Still is also great in that regard as well. Not the greatest man-to-man cover corner, but if you can let them sit in space, keep their eyes on the ball, they're willing to gamble, and more often than not, when they do it, they end up being really right. And I really want him to be okay because, again, this is another very rare thing that you're seeing in the NFL. We know that after like the Legion of Boom, bigger cornerbacks became all the rage. And then NFL kind of figured that out, and they got a little shifty at the wide receiver position, and they became like liabilities down the field and in short areas. But Rodgers has a little something to his game instinctually that I really love to see, and I'm hoping that he can pan out. This might even kind of sort of be a blessing in disguise. I don't want to see anyone injured, but if for some reason he's unable to play, he might be somebody that you can sneak on the practice squad or something like that if he cannot participate in the next couple of weeks. But I really loved what I saw from him today. And every week it's someone new. Then that was the good news. I'll let you give your thoughts on whoever else you want, because there's a flip side to this and somebody that blew my mind today, and not in a good way.
No, I know exactly what you're thinking of. But let's talk, because there was some good DB play today, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So Eric Rodgers, obviously, player of the game today. The pick six was beautiful. The way he broke on that ball was amazing. The dive on it, get up, and then take it to the house was awesome. The second pick that he got on Haener, where he's just playing the phase underneath and was able to leap up and get it on the second pick, was a beautiful read.
Don't you mean Derek Zoolander?
A poorly thrown ball from him, but from Zoolander, but still a second pick from Rodgers. And there was a pass deflection that he had where he broke on the ball, was able to get his hand in front and knock the ball down and forced a punt on a third down. He was everywhere today, and he played like Nico Reed last week. And Minter said you can never have too many DBs. And you sit and think, like, there were a lot of corners that were free agents this year and then got cut. And then you're thinking, like, maybe the Chargers, because they don't have any household names, right? They don't have that CB1. They don't have the Sauce Gardner, Marcus Lattimore. There is no, or, they don't have that Surtain name on the roster, but they don't care because they trust the process in which they develop these DBs, and they know they can get one, whether it's a undrafted free agent like Nico Reed, or it's Tarheeb Still, or it's Cam Hart. They have their guys. So I cannot be more impressed with this coaching staff. And again, it's preseason. Like, we'll see what happens, who stays on the roster, and who knows if Eric Rodgers even makes it. But when you start to think about a guy like Dean Leonard, who got injured today, Jasir Taylor, who, while he made like a pretty physical stop on Rattler running into the end zone to keep him out, he also gave up 2 crossers today. And we're talking about the preseason, and we're talking about second stringers. It wasn't Chris Olave that he gave up receptions to. You start to put a little heat on these guys that just are not performing from the former coaching staff. And you just have to commend you got to commend the whole staff in general and Minter. They are just, I don't know what they're doing right now with this interior defensive line and these DBs with, unnamed guys. I mean, Poona Ford was not a sought after free agent before he got to the Chargers. He was highly recruited out of high school. He was like a mid-round pick out of the draft. But after that, it's not like he made a big splash until he's with the Chargers. And then he made a big splash, and then he got a big contract with the Rams. So, you love the way they develop these guys. And Eric Rodgers looks like another guy that could be competing for that bottom of the depth chart type depth. But the problem now is he went down with an injury, and he had to be helped off the field today with less than 2 minutes on the last kickoff of the game. And, the booth said it, But I thought the same thing. I mean, when they completed that long pass to DJ, it kind of felt like, okay, well, you can just sit on the ball 3 times and you're good. But then they ran it with Rocket Sanders. And then in the ensuing kickoff, your player of the game, Eric Rodgers, gets injured. And he gets a block in the back that they don't call, which again, insult to injury. But Eric Rodgers, regardless, was so impressive today. He had an incredible game, much like Nico Reed did last week. And so there's some guys here that are going to be fighting for some spots, and I'm really excited to see it. I just hope that he's okay, because to be helped off the fields by 2 trainers and to walk off as gingerly as he did today, man, I don't know. I hope he's all right.
Yeah. Look, we don't have to mince words here. Ja Taylor is cheeks. And the second that if he gets cut from this team, he's going to end up being a New Orleans Saint. You want to know why? Because he's got a big engine. Remember that? That was the way that Brandon Staley used to describe him. His big engine. So you can take that engine and have it in New Orleans. And then you have mechanics working on it every week to try to repair that thing. But if that's your deal, go for it. All good. Do your thing.
Take it to Cafe Du Monde, but I ain't going to fix it.
Man, look, I'll tell you what. That's a tourist trap. If you want to do that, go for it. The best beignets are not at Cafe Du Monde, but I'm not telling anybody anything. Have fun when you're. Cafe Du Monde is fine. This is a completely. We're going off the rails here. Cafe Du Monde is fine. The best beignets are not at Cafe Du Monde. Any person who lives in Louisiana, specifically around the New Orleans area, will tell you that it's cool, but that's not really where you want to go. Holler at your boy in the DMs if you want to know the truth about where you should pop up at if you want real New Orleans food, the good kind. But anyway, different conversation.
But still, I'm not. I don't know that we can call Cafe Du Monde fine. I know it's a tourist trap. I get it. It's super popular. Everybody wants to go up and sit outside on Cafe Du Monde, but they're good. Give them they're good.
They're good. Okay, but in comparison to what I know, they're just all right.
Okay.
The ambiance is cool. You want to go sit outside?
Yeah,
it's
great.
Grab them and go sit in Jackson Square and eat them and take that in. Cool. All good. Yeah. Perfect. If it's your first experience, then great. Have that. If you want to know the real, I can let you know.
Okay, so I'm going to have to text you to find out. You're not going to tell me right now. Okay,
I'm not telling you right now. No, I'm not giving away all the secrets.
It's a trade secret?
Pod, man. No, absolutely.
Okay.
It's another insider thing. You know how you have your guy and then we let information go on here? I'm the food guy for Louisiana.
Did you hear how many times it said Harbaugh and his team, the draft room, those guys? Showing love. All right, go ahead.
This is what y'all show up for, these kind of conversations. But yeah, take Jasir any day. Give me Eric Rodgers. I'm ready to keep him already. But outside of that, my boy RJ Mickens showing up every week. In coverage, run support. He almost had a pick there at the end of the game as well. I said that he was a steal later in the draft, and people just kind of wonder, like, why wasn't he a bigger deal? Is because he doesn't have a flashy game as a safety. He's just consistent. He doesn't make very many mistakes. But again, you got that pedigree for having a parent that was in the NFL, so he understands the game very well. You don't see him having very many mental lapses. I know early in the game, there was some sort of miscommunication between he and Benjamin St-Juste. I can almost guarantee you that was probably more of a St-Juste thing than a Mickens thing. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased. It's just, have you seen Benjamin St-Juste play football?
Yeah, but he gave up the third down today.
Yeah, also the last touchdown of Mike Williams' career on Benjamin St-Juste, by the way.
You'll never let him forget that.
Jeopardy. You want that might end up being a Jeopardy question somehow one day. Anywho, but yeah, secondary in general, RJ Mickens definitely had another great day. Do we want to do the not so great? Are we ready for that?
Well, I think we could talk about, and Chris V's said, how about them Padres? So I'll turn the hat around because you can't see. So yeah, Eric Rodgers, obviously a big plus. Mickens was a dog today. He had a great tackle on the outside on that jet sweep, which the way he got horizontal and tackled low, and they had Morris Brash kind of help clean up for a minimal gain. He had a big hit on a forced incompletion. The thing that I've loved about Mickens through 2 games is his timing on his hits, where he is coming as soon as that ball hits a receiver's hands, he's coming with a big hit right behind it. And he jarred a completion loose last week, and he did it again on a tight end. That timing is impeccable, and the power he has in those hits has been awesome to see for 2 games. Then we had that pass deflection towards the end of the game, which was awesome. RJ Mickens, very good. We saw Tony Jefferson make a really quick tackle on a dump off on a tight end that was only for like a yard.
First ballot preseason Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Tony
We
Jefferson.
saw Kendall Williamson get a huge tackle for a loss on a swing pass. And then early in that game, Tarheeb Still had an incredible read on the outside to fire downhill, chop down Kendre Miller on the outside on that run. I mean, he fired on that running back and forced a 3rd and 2, which St. Juice gave up right after that on the sideline. But I mean, still had a great game today. Rodgers was amazing. Mickens was really good today. Jefferson Williamson flashed. Taylor was terrible. And then, of course, there was Bridges.
London Bridges falling down. So really quickly, I just want to go back to this because you did allude to it when we were talking about just the guys who are up making plays throughout the game. I just want to give a special shout out to Kendall Williamson because I don't think he's getting enough recognition for what he's doing on defense, but also special teams. He's contributing in both phases. So played very well whenever he was on the field today and showing his worth as someone who could be another one of those, potential back of the roster save guys here when we get to that final 53. But yeah, look, man, Traquez Bridges, 7th round draft pick, not a whole lot to expect from him. Older prospect, was a tweener. He's got the size to be a press boundary corner, but he played some safety at Florida because he there were times where he showed like that physicality where he wasn't afraid to come downhill and, make hits on guys in the running game, shoot gaps, things like that. Here's the thing. The problem with Bridges is that where you see the instinctual play from some of these other guys in the secondary, like a like a RJ Mickens, Bridges doesn't have the feel for the game that a guy like Mickens does. And I'm even talking at the cornerback position. He can't anticipate that double move that he got beat on. Ugh. The reason why it was so bad is because he was literally flat-footed. He wasn't aggressive one way or another. He was lazy in the fact that he got beat. Sometimes you see guys fly downhill in anticipation of maybe trying to jump a route. He looked like he was jogging towards the route and still got beat on the double move afterwards. He's a really good athlete for his size, and there's no excuse for that. Here's the thing, man. If you're going to get beat, at least interfere with it. Grab the dude. Do something. Don't get beat like a drum and then give up. And to be honest with you, I don't remember who the receiver was, but he almost dropped that ball. Like, you see how he was cradling? He like double caught it. He's like holding it against his body. It looks so unnatural.
Was it tipped in?
It was tipped in. It was terrible. I thought he was going to drop it. But again, this is about Bridges. Bridges just had a rough game overall. In zone coverage, he looks lost. He is more of a man-to-man type guy, and I know that that's what they want him to be, kind of sort of in that Cam Hart mode where he can press guys up and run with them. But instinctually, he just does not have that thing that the other guys as corners have playing zone where they can play off of it, keep guys in front of them, keep the quarterback and the ball in front of them, keep eyes on it, and still be able to react to the wide receiver and not get lost. He doesn't finish as a tackler in the open field. Another thing that Mickens, I know Mickens is a safety, but still, if you're going to play in this defense, specifically on the perimeter, you have to be able to finish as a tackler. And he doesn't do that very well. He's one of those guys that likes to throw shoulders into players and he'll just bounce off of them and not wrap up. The coverage is always very weird. He's kind of grabby also, which he should have been on that double move. Worst case scenario, it would have been a pass interference instead of a touchdown. But he stuck out like a sore thumb. And in a defense where all these guys have been performing to the level that they are, specifically a guy like Eric Rodgers, it looks very bad for you. And he's going to have to come back from this, keep fighting, and maybe he shows a little bit better here throughout the preseason. He's not somebody that I ever anticipated making the roster in the first place, but I thought maybe they were going to find like a late round gem. As far as development is concerned, again, I want to give kudos to the coaching staff because they do a very good job pretty much across the board. But every once in a while, they're going to be one of these guys that takes a little bit longer than what you would like. And the problem with Bridges is he's already an older prospect. So there isn't a whole lot of time that you can spend on him.
Yeah, I would say I will give him credit. He did make a nice tackle on a 3rd down to force a punt. He flashed early. and then it just went downhill in a hurry. The first, indication that he was in trouble was when he dove on that pass that he had no chance of getting a hand on, dove past the receiver, and he was lucky that a teammate was behind him to clean up the tackle there. I don't know if it's because he saw help and he decided he wanted to dive and try to make a play on that and be aggressive. He was not going to touch that ball. I mean, he was not all that close. At that point, you got to get up and make a tackle. But he lost. He gambled. I appreciate somebody DB being aggressive when he can, but he dove and he lost. Then on that double move, I mean, he was just flat. He got flat and he got beat. If he would have got aggressive and broke on the ball like he did and got beat the time before, then you go, okay, well, at least he was like trying to be aggressive, but he kind of just stopped, watched the quarterback, and then let whoever that was again, Tipton, run right by him. Then it was like whenever they needed a first down towards the end of that game, they were targeting Bridges. He gave up a first down on a third down when they needed it. Kevin Austin Jr. had a crosser and he just like ran right by him, right in front of his face, and kept going. Bridges is a guy that is on the outside right now looking in. And then when you've got guys like Nico Reed and Eric Rogers, who apparently, according to the chat, is on crutches in the locker room.
Yeah.
When you've got, God, I hope he's okay. Because it's just it's a great story and you'd love to see him. And the way he got hurt towards the end of the game is just brutal. We've got Eric Rogers and Nico Reed making some noise. It's kind of more like, is he worth bringing on the practice squad at this point? He had a really, really rough day. He's got another day to kind of, prove his worth. But he was by far one of the worst players for the Chargers today.
What really sucks about all of this is you're talking about the dudes who are actually making plays. They're the ones that keep getting injured, because even Nico Reed has been battling injury through camp, and he still played lights out last week. I mean, I don't know if it caught up with him here post game, and that's why he's been out for a bit. But you got guys like Triquez Bridges who are there. They're TED guys, right? There every day. He's there every day and looking like crap. Meanwhile, you got Nico and now Eric Rogers potentially on the shelf for a minute. So again, hopefully all these guys get better. Hate to hear that Rogers is on crutches. Hopefully it's precautionary. It's not something significant. But crutches are never good. Either way, you just have to take your hats off to this coaching staff for their ability to develop guys, and some in very, very short order.
Yeah, whenever I was in a locker room, I'd like to see crutches and not the chair or the scooter. If they've got the chair or the scooter, it ain't you ain't seeing them again. You hope at least that he can make it back soon, hopefully, and he's okay. We haven't really talked about the edge rushers because last week there was nothing to write home about except this man, Caleb Murphy, who again was really, really good. Had a nice tackle on special teams where Scott had to punt it out of their own end zone. So he made a clean tackle, made sure they didn't flip the field, had the sack fumble that a boy recovered, got another sack where he just kind of hand fought Dylan Reduns. Yeah. Reduns. And then just ripped right by him. Had 2 sacks today, got the forced fumble. He was very good today. We're seeing it on defense. We're seeing it on special teams, and we're seeing him climb up the chart and probably
you gonna do it?
Kyle Kennard at this point.
You did it.
Gotta be, right?
I'm gonna say that I'm right there with you. I don't disagree, because
if you add that special teams value, I mean, he's up there.
That's not to say that Kennard's not going to make the team. I mean, he's your 4th round draft pick. So, but when we're talking about just being available and producing, look, man, I don't know what the Caleb Murphy's Hive name is or what the fan club is, but sign me up. It's been 2 weeks now, and I heard his name through camp, and I didn't see a lot of what everyone was talking about because I wasn't there. I saw clips, but the kid can play, and we're talking about a Chargers room that doesn't have a bunch when we're talking about, with regard to youth and effective edge rushing. Kyle Kennard was someone who doesn't necessarily win with high level athleticism. He's an effort guy. He's got some length to him and a little bit of get off, but he's going to be a developmental type. Caleb Murphy is doing a little bit of everything though. He's standing up solid in the run game. He's getting after the quarterback. He's finishing. He's forcing turnovers. Kyle, get well soon and then get in the lab champ, because Caleb Murphy wants your spot. And right now, he's deserving it. Can't give any more props to someone for showing up every single week in some shape or form. And he's not just like playing on special teams. He's a high-level special teams contributor. And so that's going to get him on the field quicker. I don't know if Kyle Kennard offers anything in that regard on special teams, but Caleb Murphy absolutely does, and he does it at an extremely high level. I'm looking forward to seeing him now every week. Last week, it was kind of like, okay, we might be on to something. This week, this game was about him. Aside from Eric Rodgers, if this wasn't about Eric Rodgers' pick 6 and his second interception, this would be the Caleb Murphy show that we were talking about, because he was that type of player, and he performed to a level that right now no other Chargers edge rushers in the preseason have. And when you think about the potential there of getting him in the mix with like Thule and Mac, I feel really good about that. And I think that's one of the question marks that's going into the season, is how is that edge room going to stack up, and how's that rotation going to look? And as of right now, I know that Bud Dupree, I think, was dealing with something as well, but they said that he was having a really good camp. If you can get some performers there, some youth inject into that room, and guys who can get after the quarterback, then as much as they like their DBs and they said you can have never have enough, the other thing that you can't have enough of are edge rushers, and they're at a premium. Talking about one of the like second or third most important positions in all of football. So yeah, love it. Hope to see this kid continue to grow. And again, sign me up. Whatever the fan club is, whatever dues I got to pay, I'm in.
We've got Murphy for mayor, according to Stephen P. I don't know. I think we could do better. Is this a reference to Dick Murphy, the old San Diego mayor? I don't know. But Murphy's been great. I mean, he was, maybe the 6th guy on the depth chart. It was Thule, obviously, Mac. Then you had Dupree. Kennard probably was edge 4 because he was drafted. But then you had Tremont Morris-Brash, who was a guy that everybody thought would be, making some noise, who did pretty good in the preseason last year. And you thought maybe he'd be able to squeak in as another edge rusher, but Caleb Murphy has leapfrogged Morris-Brash completely. And it feels like a guy that when you're filling out your roster, the last 3 to 4 spots is for depth and it's for special teams value. And if you can have an extra edge rusher, a 4th one or 5th, depending on, where you have Kennard, and you can add special teams value, then Caleb Murphy's a perfect fit, because he's done it on special teams 2 weeks in a row now. And now he's getting after the quarterback, got a turnover, 2 sacks today. And again, if it wasn't, Eric Rodgers 2 interceptions, Craig's right, we would be talking about Caleb Murphy. He was incredible today. And there was no pass rush last week, excuse me. No pass rush at all. And then now we've got some nice juice off the edge from Caleb Murphy. So shout out to him. He was really, really good today.
Yeah. So again, next week is going to be squarely in the top 3 or 4 guys that I'm looking to see perform, because I think he's pretty much, I know we're only into the 2nd week of the preseason. Well, technically first, but I want to say he's probably carved out a role for himself on this roster already. It's just how much more can you do? Yeah.
The other guy I do want to give a shout out before we get out of here is Marlo Wax, who's pretty active today. Got a run stop. Was in on that kind of group sack in that 3rd quarter where it felt like 3 different, like Murphy was in on it. Naquan Jones was in on it. I think Wax finished it off and got credited for it on that play. But he popped today. I saw number 58 and was wondering who the heck that was, like you do every preseason. And he was one of those guys who had a really nice day today.
Yeah, Marlon Wax is a name that keeps popping up here also throughout camp. So can't wait to go back and look at the rewatch and see how much work he put in today. And he'll probably make one of those names that I'm going to be looking for throughout the remainder of the preseason, because when you're just talking about linebacker play in general, there still are some question marks on the team. I'm not going to mention a guy that I'm a big fan of that hasn't looked very, very good here to start the preseason and already had question marks. Just not going to do it. Still have faith in him. But I think Marlo Wax has an opportunity to be another one of those guys that maybe they can sneak on the practice squad, or hell, if he performs well throughout the remainder of the preseason. let me not go that far. I don't think he makes the 53, but I think that he could squarely land on the practice squad, though.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about a guy that was drafted pretty high last year, and
yeah,
okay,
yeah, maybe.
I was just making sure we were on the
maybe
same page.
had to have emergency surgery for something.
Okay,
and,
gotcha.
Yeah, that stuff.
And then also, by the way, J.K. Scott had a really nice day today. We don't really talk about kickers, but good on Scott.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, J.K. Scott, I will say this because we've given him some gripe. Like, as long as he does fine, we really don't say very much about him. It's just when he screws up, we definitely give it to him.
Sure.
He was inconsistent. He had some games where he was really inconsistent, like just the last 2 or 3 years. He'd go 1 to 2 games where he's just booming the ball, getting a lot of hang time because we know that's his thing. And then there would be other games where you just shank the crap out of the ball and put the team in really bad position, field position, not flip the field, end up actually being in a situation where they might have been better off going for it on 4th down and actually punting the ball. Who knows? But right now, throughout the preseason, he's showing consistency. You see that the coaching staff has a lot of faith in him and they believe in what he can do. So I'm not going to question him anymore. Just want him to stay consistent. That's all I can ask, man. You got one job to do. Just do it. You ain't got to kick a ball through an upright. You're not Cameron Dicker. We're just asking you to get the ball to the opposition, get us some favorable field position, and not hurt us. That's all you got to do. Provided he continues to do that, you won't hear me say anything about him.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move off the game because we've talked about everybody, including kickers now, which is officially the time to hang that up. And then a couple things happened while we were gone. One of which the chat is asking about from Melee Kid. Have the boys talked about the tackles they worked out this week? So, Craig, they tried out Chris Hubbard, Julian Pearl, Cameron Fleming, and David Sharp. They end up signing David Sharp on Saturday to a contract. We'll talk about Rashawn Slater going down in a little bit, but feelings about David Sharp?
I have none.
Okay.
No, absolutely none at all. I mean, I know that he has history with the Ravens, so there's some level of comfort there. He was with the Texans for a little bit, right? Couldn't stick around.
Yes. He stuck around for a little bit, but
okay. Just overall in general, not a whole lot to say about him. Not a player that I've ever spent very much time evaluating. I've seen a few clips. He looks like a below average offensive tackle. And what it tells me is that they just want someone who can come in a pinch that has to play if they have to and have familiarity with the system already. And they're relying on the fact that, you drafted what should result in being not very much of a fall off when you're flipping your right tackle to left tackle and playing him as natural position. And again, Trey Pipkins, for all of the gripe we give him, had a decent showing as a right tackle a couple years ago. Trash at guard, but is someone who may be able to come in and hold his own. So they're not looking for a replacement, more so someone who can come in and become part of the group. And if you have to stick him in there, then I guess you could do worse.
Right. So a couple things here. Trey Pipkins was so bad at right tackle that they had to flip him into guard and they had to draft Joe Alt. I think Charger fans have forgotten all that. And nobody wanted Slater to be hurt. To be honest with you, I feel like Rashawn Slater is on the road to being the best left tackle in Chargers history, franchise history. He is an amazing left tackle. He's a top 5 tackle in the NFL. In my mind, one of the best left tackles to ever wear a Chargers uniform. I do not want him gone. It's terrible and tragic that he got injured the way he did. And from here on out, the outlook isn't sunny. Those type of injuries, you never get back to 100%. So we're going to see a shade of what Slater was at that point. We'll see if he even plays again. I don't know. We'll just see where that goes. You feel like Slater's a guy that's going to work his tail off and get back to where he was. And I have faith that he'll do that. But Trey Pipkins was so bad they had to draft Joe Alt. Just remember that as I say this. David, we're fine with Trey Pipkins. We're not that far off. That was 2 years ago. I know you burned that out of your memory. I did too, but he has not been good at right tackle. but he is the right tackle, and it is what it is at this point. Now, David Sharp has been a career swing tackle for most of his life in the NFL. He's played more right tackle than he has left tackle, so that pretty much tells you what they're going to do. They've already said they're going to move Joe Alt to left tackle, which he did in college. You have no gripes about that. He's probably going to be all pro. Joe Alt's amazing, and I'm happy that he's a Charger, even more so now with his injury than ever before. So now right tackle, you got Trey Pipkins, and now you have a veteran right tackle that can come in a pinch and can now be the swing tackle, which was Trey Pipkins. He's a veteran. He's only 29, so it's not like he's, over the hill or anything like that. Yeah, but he is what he is. He's a swing tackle. I think he started only like 6 to 8 games his entire career. But he was a swing tackle, and then he was also the tackle on special teams in the kicking game. So if you bring him in as a swing tackle and he can help you on special teams and you don't have to have Trey Pipkins out there, then better for it. So I'm fine with the signing.
Mm-hmm.
I was more familiar with Cameron Fleming's game, though I think he's ancient. He's got to be in his 30s.
Sure.
But he's only 29, has experience. They got a veteran. They didn't sign a UFL guy or any Canadian football tackle to come and fill that spot. So I'm okay with it. It's just fine. But at this point in the season, you're not going to get a starting right tackle. Maybe during cuts, there's somebody, there's a Joe Barksdale type situation that happens. We'll see. But for right now, we've got Sharp, and he will be just fine as a veteran left tackle.
Yeah. It's really hard to see the sunny side with Trey Pipkins. Like, I get it. And I mentioned this a few years ago, when was it the extension he earned, quote unquote, after being in the contract year, and the old regime gave it to him, and then he comes out and we see the truth. And here's the thing. Trey Pipkins, because he's got left tackle feet, remember? Was that the thing?
Yep,
was it left tackle
exactly
feet?
Right.
So yeah, apparently it didn't translate to left or right tackle really, but he had one decent year. He gets kicked into guard, gets exposed because, of course, that is not his natural position. He had no business playing on the interior. The dude does not have like the sand in the pants to play on the inside. And you would think that due to his athleticism, he would be better as a tackle. He's got really good movement skills. He's just not a very strong player. And what freaks me out, and I'm realizing now who had the best night of sleep after that alt announcement moving to left tackle was.
Is that Max Crosby?
Max freaking Crosby.
Yeah,
because he cannot wait to see Trey Pipkins twice a year.
He
was put in hell last year by a rookie in his first game. And I'll say this, Pipkins definitely puts in the work. We've seen that he does this in the offseason. That's great. I'm not okay with putting him on. At least they were smart enough to not have him protect Herbert's blind side. At least Herbert can see when he's getting mashed and like somehow make a decision to either get the ball out quicker or that he's going to have to roll to the opposite side to avoid just getting destroyed by any decent edge rusher coming off of that side. But the other thing they're going to do, and I'm not going to be surprised, is like we already know tight ends were going to be a huge part of this offense. It was going already. But now you're probably going to see more like, 13 personnel. There are going to be situations where they're going to line tight ends next to Pipkins just to assist against some of those more premier pass rushers, because asking him to defend one-on-one against the likes of someone like a Max Crosby all game long consistently is stupid. So hopefully the game plan is going to be to provide him some help, maybe some chips. Maybe we're going to focus more on running at those players on that side and giving them help in double teams like that. But year after year, the questions are always, you see the criticism about Justin Herbert, and you can tell people who don't actually watch because they don't see some of the stuff the dude literally has to deal with and the pieces that come up missing that affect the overall game. In general, Trey Pipkins is probably going to be somewhat of a liability, but now Greg Roman's going to have to really earn his coins and formulate some serious game plans week to week to make him less of one, to where he doesn't stand out like a sore thumb and get Herbert murdered. That is the thing that I'm concerned with at this point. Greg Roman's never been very, very, creative in his game plan, but what he does know how to do is to make a running game work. So I think there's just going to be more tight end usage. You're going to see more tight ends attached. So you're going to see more Tucker Fisk probably active on game days than what you would have previously. And I'm fine with it. Just figure something out. Do not have Pipkins out there week after week consistently matching up one-on-one against some of these top flight edge rushers. It's a recipe for disaster, and we all know it.
I mean, we've had this conversation 2-3 years ago about the same thing, about getting tight end help, fullback help, shifting the protection to Trey Pipkin's side, getting him as much extra bodies over there as possible so that they've got to run through 2 to 3 other bodies to get to Herbert rather than just the half of one that Pipkins is providing on the edge. But that was also with a different regime. I have more faith that Harbaugh will figure this out. I think they will make it work somehow. They always do. So I think we can, and that's not like a really good answer. Like, oh, they'll figure it out. There's no concrete evidence to that. But Harbaugh has proven time after time that you can just trust him to make it work, and I will trust him to make it work. So that's as far as I can go with it. Trey Pipkins has been bad. He has failed at every spot that he started at. He's been replaced at every spot that he started at, whether it's right tackle and they got to draft Joe Alt, or right guard and they got to bring in Mekhi Becton. Now he's back to right tackle. He'll be replaced again. But for this year, if he can just be average, Chargers will be good. That's all we need. And so, yeah, this injury is rough to Slater. And again, I hate to see it. I still believe he's going to be the best left tackle in Chargers history, and I feel like he's coming back. But for this season, outside of Herbert, I don't know a worse injury than those tackles. Because it's probably interchangeable, because Joe Alt gets injured, Pipkins is in, Slater gets injured, Pipkins is in.
We're probably all longing for the days of just early last week when the question was, what were the Chargers going to do at center? Now we have a wholly different conversation, because even with Mekhi Becton, the issue with him historically has been staying healthy, and he's been out of practice for over a week. So some real question marks going through the next few weeks, and then getting to that regular season where, the early slate are like back-to-back division games. So they have to get it figured out. I know it's not that simple, but they just have to figure it out. And the Slater injury, talking about gutted, I didn't want to talk about football for like 2 days after that happened, to be completely honest with you. It was sickening. I still remember I was working and the alert popped up, and I'm just kind of like, you got to be kidding me. The dude just gets paid the highest contract for a tackle in NFL history. And then 2-3 weeks later, you've got an injury that doesn't just take him out for the year, is career threatening. So now do we understand why these players hold out for money? Because you just never know. And I get it. Some people look at it as not necessarily being, honoring your current contract. And we know what that was. It was a silent hold in. They just weren't making a huge deal about it. Really and truly, the fact of the matter is that, like, owners, leadership can do whatever they want with these contracts when they decide to do it. If they feel like you're not playing up to snuff, they can either get rid of you or they can cut you. They can figure out, they can maneuver around these things however they well please. But for a player, you're putting your body on the line every week. And your job is to not only go out there and perform at the highest level, but you also have to make the best living that you possibly can for yourself and your family. And if you're in a position to where you can get more, then I'm never going to be against a player doing it. Unless you're somebody like Melvin Gordon, in which case, go to hell.
Right. But if you don't deserve it. Right.
Yeah. And I stand by that. I don't care who's a fan of Melvin Gordon. I like Melvin Gordon at one time too, but then y'all all know how that worked out. But yeah, I think if anybody can work their way back from an injury like this, it's this guy. I have all the faith in the world. I have all the faith in the world that Slater will come back. To what level he'll perform at once he does don the pads again, we'll all have to wait and see. But for someone who's as hard a worker, as consistent as he is, I have no doubt that he's going to do everything in his power to get back on the field. And it just sucks, man, because every time the Chargers get like a 1-2 combo, you never see it to the best of like its potential. It feels that way. You're talking about arguably a top 2-3, like outside of the Eagles, probably the best tackle tandem in the entirety of the NFL.
Yeah.
And now we're just going to have to wait at least another year. And again, we don't know what version of Slater we're going to get when he comes back, but I'm not doubting, that he can come back and return to those heights of performing the way he was prior to this injury. So shout out to you, Rashawn. Get well, man. And if anybody is gutted for you about this, it's me, man. I haven't felt right about it since it's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't either. It feels difficult to talk about somehow, and I'm not sure how, but just because it's like you're just gutted. I don't think anybody is really surprised by any kind of freak injuries to the Chargers or anything like this happening. That it's not that. It's to a guy like Slater who's worked so hard to get where he's at. And to be honest with you, the odds that he's coming back to 100% Rashawn Slater are so low. Mm-hmm. But I would take a Rashawn Slater at 70% than, like 75% of the left tackles in the NFL. Like that still feels like a top 15 left tackle in the NFL. I think he is just awesome. And I'm rooting for him. I hope he comes back stronger, better. Who knows, man? I just hope he comes back. And yeah, man, it's a rough injury. And it hasn't worked out for a lot of players, and to a left tackle that's really got to depend on their base more than the other positions, that it took those players. Like a lot of running backs, wide receivers had to retire after this injury. And then you're talking about career left tackle. It sucks, but I hope he comes back soon. I do.
Your job is to anchor down against some of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. You think about that. Like, think about the force that you have that's exerted on your lower half as a pass protector in the NFL at that position. And yeah, it's hard to imagine he'll be exactly what he was prior to. But again, we'll see how that works out. What really pisses me off about this in general is that, and this is going to sound like hate, and I'll accept it. There have been at least 3 or 4 potential major injuries that happen to players in camp this season, and it ends up not being nearly as bad as they thought. But the Chargers get this one, and it's always, when it's to our best players, it's always the worst case scenario. It almost never fails. We lucked out with Herbert in the torn rib cartilage. I mean, the dude still played with torn rib cartilage, though. So, I guess it could have been broken ribs or something like that, and then you can't play at all. So, yeah, we got some grace on that one. But historically, like, you think about those injuries that Derwin James suffered, you had those old Keenan Allen injuries. It's like the best players, and it's always the ones that put them down for extended periods of time where they miss the entirety of the season. And it's always those years where we have a lot to look forward to. So now, in a season where you're going from playing one of the easiest schedules in the NFL to one of the more difficult ones, you got to have all hands on deck. And we're going to do our game prediction at some point, our record prediction, but this absolutely has to affect that, if you're being honest about it.
No, sure. Yeah. And like, we're not even including the freak injury that happened to Najee Harris. And it feels like a bad omen for the season, for a dude to blow his eye out basically. And then for Slater to go down with the injuries that he had. I mean, this is not a great start.
Wait, I just realized though, we're talking about Trey Pipkins playing right tackle. He also has injury issues as well. So there's a world where, Becton and Pipkins, let me not put that out in the ether. If you pay attention, you know what I'm getting at.
So what do you think about this question from Charlie? That Slater will have to move to right tackle, because it doesn't feel like there's any real. I don't really feel like there's a difference. He's either going to play tackle on either spot during the injury. If he's more injured, trying to hide him at right tackle. I mean,
to be completely honest with you, it would probably matter if the NFL wasn't shifting towards having very good pass rushers on both sides. Yeah, it used to be where like you can get away with having an average to below average right tackle because the pass rusher was normally lining up over the right, over the left tackle. But now you've got scenarios where you got guys who they either move around or two edges that you have to be concerned about.
Right.
And so I don't think it behooves them to move him to the right because, could you potentially have to face less? Maybe. but we also don't know what the majority of these rosters are going to look like going into next year, nor do we know the schedule yet. So you could be playing multiple teams that have pretty decent edges on both sides, and then he's going to have to battle no matter where you place him. I've seen people talk about him having to move inside the guard, and I mean, I just don't feel like that's the best use of his talent. We just have to wait and see how he comes back. And it could be a rough start once he gets back, or the dude might just be like football Jesus and come back and perform up to near the level he was before he left. I'm not thinking that's going to be the case, but I'm not about shifting him around and having to move him. Let's see how he performs first, and then if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, fine. But I don't think moving him to right tackle really fixes anything for him at this point. So, nah, I don't really see it.
No, because whether you're going right tackle or left tackle, there's still going to be, matchup. You're playing the matchups at that point. If you've got a weak tackle like Trey Pipkins, then you're going to want to go after the right tackle. There isn't just to line them up on the left side and let them rush. I mean, there's mixing and matching, and you're moving everybody around, and you're overloading size. You're playing the matchup. So I don't think that's true. I don't think they have to move him to right tackle. And he's saying, I just think Joe Alt's going to be all pro this year at left tackle. Now,
I wouldn't be shocked.
I think I just mentioned it earlier that he's going to be all pro. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Charlie. He's going to be excellent at left tackle and
his natural position.
I put money on him being all pro. So if Joe Alt's left tackle and you're saying, well, he's our left tackle of the future and you want to move Slater to right tackle, that scenario I can get with. One that I absolutely cannot get with is guard. If you're having an injury like his, you're not going to put him on the inside where he's going to have to generate more force against bigger bodies. That is just not how you do it. You cannot do it. That is not good for him as a player. It's not good
counterproductive.
His projection as a football player going forward. None of that makes sense. That is absolutely out of the question in my mind. There's no way you can end up doing that.
Yeah, I don't foresee it either. And also thinking about if Alt does become an all-pro left tackle, the thing that you're looking at now is the fact that he was already putting in time at right, which I don't believe Slater's ever played. Well, at Northwestern, I know he moved around a little bit, but you're talking about Alt, who's now actually put in a full off season at that position. He's been working to be a full-time right tackle. Also, they were mixing him in at left tackle. So we knew it during camp when they were doing that, what the plan was going to be, because they were preparing for a scenario in which, like, if there was no Slater, what would you do then? Well, you definitely don't want Pipkins defending Herbert's blind side. Why not put the guy who's a natural left tackle in, who can come in and maybe get you very little drop off from the guy you already have? A lot of people don't have that option. I just think that Slater comes back, you still have a guy that even if he performs that well at left tackle has already put in the reps to play right. So it would be a little less of an adjustment for him, whereas Slater would have to essentially come in and learn a wholly new position on top of, coming back from an injury. So it wouldn't be my preference, but I'm not going to question the way they build the offensive line. I do believe, like Harbaugh said, that offensive linemen are weapons. I think they're just going to continue to put resources into the line in general. So I'm not saying they're going to do this, but I also would not be shocked if they take a flyer or use earlier round draft capital on an offensive tackle next year. And I'm not going to say like the first round, but if they took a guy in like the second or third round, just kind of as an insurance policy, then I wouldn't be shocked by that at all.
All right. So the other thing, and we hope you get better, Slater, and we're rooting for you.
Yeah. Sure.
The other thing that we need to talk about, in case he was talking about in the chat, is the Chargers end up signing Keenan Allen, an old friend of the Chargers, comes back. Mike Williams retires, minus Mike Williams, add Keenan Allen, and now he is part of it. And he said on the broadcast today he was really happy, and it felt like it felt good to be back home, is what he said. So. Good for him. I'm glad they're able to build that chemistry back up with Herbert. I'll let you. What are your initial thoughts on this? I had a day tweeting about this when they signed him, so I'll get to that, I guess, when you're done. So what? How are you feeling about Keenan?
Let's get the nostalgic thing out of the way. For those purposes alone, Keenan Allen is one of my favorite Chargers of all time. top 5 Charger of all time, easily. When they traded him to Chicago, like Jamie and I did that emergency pod afterwards, and you talk about just dejected. I hated that move for multiple reasons. It's just, I couldn't imagine the dude ever playing in anyone else's uniform. It just didn't feel like it would ever be the same. It didn't look like his heart was in it in Chicago. You would see the interviews. He was doing his best to put on a good face, but you could tell he never really wanted to leave LA. The problem was that the dude performed that he had one of his top 3 seasons of all time the year prior, and they wanted him to take a pay cut, and he wasn't willing to do it. I understood both sides because they were kind of sort of in cap hell, and they needed to find a way to maneuver, and you had other veteran players that were willing to do it, but Keenan wasn't. And to be honest with you, I don't blame him, because you don't come off a year like that and say, yeah, give me less. So what it means now, completely honest with you, I think this works out better than the Mike Williams situation that would have. Even though the games aren't the same and you needed more of an quote unquote X receiver and a bigger body, what would the question have been? Well, how long are you going to actually have Mike Williams? It's cool to have those 50-50 balls, right? But 1 out of 3 of them, he's going to come up and need like assistance to be walked to the sideline. You never knew how long you were going to have it. So I didn't plan on Mike Williams actually being available that often. Insert Keenan Allen, who can get open in more than one way. And then I know how people question like how he works in tandem with Ladd. I'm not super concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the usage as opposed to like them being on the field at the same time and it taking away from Ladd. I would assume that since you can kind of use them interchangeably, because Ladd can play some Z, Keenan can play some Z, you're going to see them both in between Z and slot. I'm okay with that, just because, again, he offers you more in the passing game. He's not going to give you much deep like Mike Williams would, but you'll be able to work him in the intermediate game. Keenan still has a little bit of juice. I'm not saying like super athletic, because that's never been his game. It was one of the reasons why I've always said Keenan Allen can play till he's like 35, 36 years old, because his game isn't predicated on the athleticism. He's always just been a high-end, precise route runner, and that doesn't just go away. And I'm not comparing him to Jerry Rice, but keep in mind that man played until he was 40 because he could still route people up at that age. Keenan kind of is in that same vein because that's what he concentrates on. And no matter what, if you can get off the line of scrimmage and you can keep defensive backs guessing just because of your release package, your ability to get in and out of breaks, you're going to have an opportunity to keep playing. And so overall, I'm a fan of the signing. I like it more than the Mike Williams signing, actually. And again, it's not just for nostalgic purposes. It's because I think that he brings an element to the passing game that they needed terribly, the ability to beat man-to-man coverage. And Mike Williams didn't give you that. It would have to be contested catches, catching through contact, even in short areas. And you would just hope that you can put the ball on him because he's a bigger body and he come away with it. Keenan Allen can still create separation as a 33-year-old wide receiver. And there's really nothing that you can complain about with that regard. He doesn't add, again, a splashy receiver, like from an athleticism standpoint, but keep in mind, you do have some younger cats that can give you that. Keenan gives you leadership in that room. And someone that I know he's dealt with like injuries here in the past, more recently, like some soft tissue stuff, but I feel like he's going to be more reliable and available than a Mike Williams was. So I'm all on board with this. And I just love Slater. So here's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, with this signing, I mean, obviously I like it better than Mike Williams too. I wasn't a fan of that signing. It felt like a nostalgia signing. This feels like it too, but also, but in a better direction, because you're talking about improving the depth chart and bringing on competition. We were talking about when Mike Williams retired, it was obviously Ladd, Trey, KLS. QJ was going to make the team most likely, and Darius Davis was going to be your 5th wide receiver, or was that 6? 5th wide receiver because of his returnability. And then you're talking probably about Jalen Reagor and Brendan Rice, or even Dale Vaughn Campbell as your wide receiver 6. And at that point, it was ugly. And none of those names made any sense. And you even wanted QJ to be getting some competition here to try to push him off the roster. That's gone. QJ's here. I guess he's not going to play any preseason either. I guess he's earned that right somehow. I don't know. But when you bring on Keenan Allen, you're then now pushing Reagor, Rice, Campbell to that 7th wide receiver, which most likely won't be happening. they're probably going to be keeping 6, 7, unless somebody can really, really make a splash. And the only issue that I had was that, Lad McConkey was so effective in the slot, and Keenan Allen was so effective in the slot 2 years ago that you're now we talked about how much they needed a boundary wide receiver and how they needed somebody to help stretch the field. And they have one in KLS, hopefully. And Darius Davis at points, if you need a speed option on the outside, but Trey Harris as well. We're talking about guys that could play on the outside, and we didn't want to take Lad away from the slot as much as they probably will now with Keenan Allen. That's fine. They'll be interchangeable. That's okay. But the problem that could occur is that we're now, obviously it's about winning games, and whoever is the best player should be playing. And I want to make that really clear. If Keenan Allen is playing so much better than KLS and Trey Harris, play Keenan Allen. If Trey Harris continues to struggle and has some drops again, play Keenan Allen. But if Trey Harris is, showing sparks on this offense and KLS is showing sparks on this offense, by playing Keenan Allen feels very short-sighted when you know that you've got guys like KLS and Trey Harris who are the future, hopefully, for the Chargers at the wide receiver spot. But then you kind of lean on the nostalgia veteran option and you take away from the growth of the rookies. That's the only problem I have with it at this point. But I hope in my mind that Harbaugh says whoever is the best player is going to play and not rely on the name brand of Keenan Allen. I love Keenan Allen. I'm with Craig. He's one of my favorite Chargers. Might go down as my favorite Chargers wide receiver that I've ever seen, at least in my lifetime. But, I think the way I worded it on Twitter was, I think there's a careful dance here where you play the best players, period. But if you see Trey Harris and KLS start to make a lot more noise, I think that's when you start to split snaps a little bit more towards the rookies and the young guys, and you start to sprinkle Keenan in less and less, as long as Trey and KLS are playing up to Keenan or better of his standard. There's going to be a mix of those four, and Quentin will get thrown in there, and Darius will get thrown in there as well. But I think what we need to do here as the Chargers, the Royal We, is play the best players possible. Make sure Keenan, gets his snaps. I'm happy he's here, getting another option next to Lad for two guys that can get open when they need it. It's nice to have two guys that are exceptional route runners on money downs, especially. I think they're better than they were when they started training camp than they are today. I think they're much better today with Keenan Allen and minus Mike Williams. But I do think, like, if KLS is doing really good and Trey Harris is doing really good, and then you're just leaning on Keenan Allen a little bit too much, I think that's where you can run into a little bit of issues in my mind.
So what I'm hoping doesn't happen is that Keenan Allen was sort of Justin Herbert's binky, if you will. Like, he was the go-to receiver where he forced the ball to Keenan no matter what. And now he was forced to kind of get out of his comfort zone to try to develop more of a rapport with the other receivers. You saw that happen with Lad as the year went on. He became that guy. Now in this scenario, I feel like you give him an additional option that he feels comfortable with as a go-to. Now, I also think that there had to have been a conversation before Keenan resigned about what they wanted his role to be and potentially what it could mean. There's a world where Keenan comes in and the first half of the season, he is more involved in the passing game. But as the year goes on, KLS, or I think he prefers to be called Dre as opposed to KLS or whatever, how that works. I'm calling him KLS. And Trey Harris develop. You don't want to, you don't want to arrest that development. You want them to be in and be able to get their touches. And if they're growing throughout the year, it might force Keenan to take a little bit of a backseat. And then he becomes more of, how you have your defensive specialists as edge rushers that, kind of come in on passing downs. Keenan becomes more that guy that they'll put in when they have to move the chains. Because the Chargers aren't ever, Greg Roman offenses don't run a ton of 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. Like, if you've paid attention to this throughout history, that's not really their thing. So now a lot of people are just thinking, they'll just come out and sling the ball all over the yard, only if they absolutely have to. But that's not going to be the default offense. So there's going to be one or two odd men out. For the time being, I think as they're rolling into the season, and especially in some of these bigger games earlier in the year, they want to make sure that they have someone that Herbert can depend on other than Ladd McConkey, because the last thing you want to do is get off to like a 1-2, 0-3 start, because it's divisional games, and those count as basically 2. So Keenan helps in that aspect. I think long term, as the year goes on, this is probably like his last year in general. I don't think he ever wanted to play anywhere else. And he can ride off into the sunset, being a leader in that wide receiver room and contributing and potentially breaking that Gates receiving record as well. What does he need? Like 52, 53 receptions, something like that. Yeah. Then they'll work to do that for him. But if we get to the back end of the year and you're seeing more of the younger guys and less of Keenan, then that's probably the trade-off. And I don't think they signed him with any misleadings about what his role is going to be long-term. And yeah, if he's performing better than those guys, they're not going to force feed the youngins into the roster just because they feel like they should. Keenan's performing at a high level, then he's going to play, and he should.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also helps Keenan long-term if he's thinking about going another year to be, sprinkled in like that, where he's only getting a certain amount of touches if the rookies start to show out. But again, like Harbaugh says, competitors welcome. And if Keenan Allen is the best wide receiver on that, the best 3, he should be seeing the field.
Except if you're on the offensive line, apparently.
Yeah, that is a whole other conversation. All right, Craig, we did it. We're way over our time here, but thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, join the Patreon, do all the things. We're over at Lightning Round everywhere you need to find us, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Sub, share, all that good stuff. Salute.
Yes.